Live from the Business RadioX studio inside Renaissance Bank, the bank that specializes in understanding you. It's time for North Fulton Business Radio.
And hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of North Fulton Business Radio. I'm John Ray, and we are broadcasting live from Renaissance Bank in beautiful Alpharetta. And folks, I get excited every time I say that, broadcasting live from Renaissance Bank in Alpharetta, because it's been a while since we've been back, and we're excited to be back after the pandemic induced hibernation that we were in. We've been virtual and not here in Renaissance, but we're excited to be back. But Renaissance they've been at it all throughout the pandemic, trying to help small businesses, and they've done a great job at it. And here's what I would suggest to you. If you have a big bank problem, and you know what I mean, you've got a bank that's, they're hiding behind 800 numbers and computer-generated voices, and they've lost touch with you, give Renaissance Bank a try. They're big enough to offer pretty much any service that you need as a small, medium-sized business, but they're small enough to do it in a personal way. And I know that myself. So give them a shot, and go to renaissancebank.com and find their local office, and they've got some 200 across the South, open, available, ready to serve you. Renaissance Bank, understanding you, member FDIC. Now I want to welcome Elizabeth Johnson. Elizabeth is the executive director of Jesse's House. Elizabeth, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's
good
great
to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. So tell us a little bit about you, and talk to us about Jesse's House. How are you serving folks out there? Okay.
Well, a little bit about me. Most of my career has been serving people with co-occurring psychiatric and substance abuse disorders as a therapist, and actually started my career at Jesse's House providing clinical services as well to the girls there. But after about a year of being there as a therapist, the then executive director offered me a job as the program director, which requires that clinical background and experience. So it seemed like a great fit, and I was already very much taken by the mission and the work that they were doing. So it was a pretty easy yes, actually. Mm-hmm. So I served as the program director then for 3.5 years, and then became the executive director in 2020. So awesome.
Okay. So for those that don't know Jesse's House, talk about what you do and how you serve the young women there.
Okay. Well, just to give a little bit of background information, we were founded in 1998 and founded through an assessment that had been done through Kennesaw State University in 1996 for the North Georgia region. And out of that assessment, they learned that there was a need for housing for at-risk youth was the term. And so we were started out of a modest 2-bedroom home that was donated by the family of Jesse Morris, by his son, actually, Larry Morris, that I spoke to on Friday, which was so cool. I'd never spoken with them before. And anyway, so we started in a 2-bedroom home that their family had donated. And in 2004, then moved to the facility where we are now, where we have a capacity for 12 girls who each have their own room. And so that was a huge change for us. But through the years, through the 23 years, then we've served actually 1,042 girls.
Oh, wow.
Through the 23 years. Yeah.
Wow.
That come from all over Georgia. I mean, mainly the North Georgia area, but there have been girls from every county, I think. So the need is pretty widespread.
Yeah, I was going to say, so you've got 12 beds, and you've served over 1,000 girls and young ladies over that time, and they come from all over. What that says to me is that the need is much greater than what you have capacity for.
Yeah, it is. And some of it can just be kind of a timing thing. The girl comes from a county that's far away, and the closest group home is full or, that's just not a good fit for them. So, but they do try to place them closer to where they might have a family connection or, something's familiar to them, keeping them there, homeschool, things like that. So, they try really to do that, but you're right. The need is greater than what we can serve.
And the girls, young women that you serve, they are wards of the state. I mean, they have wards of defects, as it were.
Approximately 80% of the girls that we serve have been removed from conditions of abuse by the Department of Family and Children's Services.
Mm-hmm.
But the other 20% have been placed through Forsyth County Juvenile Court. And the difference there is that for all of them, it's a safety concern. Whether it's the abuse that's happening in the home that they need to be removed from, or the girl themselves is doing something that puts them at risk or their family at risk. And those are the girls that are placed through Forsyth County Juvenile Court. So a lot of times we'll find when they come in that there's, a pretty similar situation to a lot of those girls who have had substantiated abuse, but these girls haven't. Right. So, so they come to us with a lot of the same need, actually.
This, the answer to this question may be obvious for some, but may not be for others. Why a group home environment versus foster care or some other alternative? Well,
unfortunately, so we serve ages 12 through actually 21 is what we're licensed to serve, but typically it's between 12 and 18. So for girls that have been in care, some since they were 2 years old, just can't remember, they've been in and out of care, there's been enough that has happened to them. I mean, all of the girls that come to us, no matter their background, come to us with complex trauma, which means that they've experienced pervasive and continuous and often in interpersonal relationships and lots of different types of trauma through their lifetime. So they come to us. 80% of them have been hospitalized previous to coming to us. So for self-harm and suicidal ideation, some it's been, a time or two, but for some it's been as many as 20 times that they've been hospitalized. So there's pretty significant mental health challenges and behavior that comes along with that is difficult for somebody to manage in a foster home. So they've just been through a lot by the time they get to us, and it's more than you can ask of a family foster home that it's really well-meaning, but just doesn't have the background and skill to take care of that, or it's just kind of too much. So having a group home means that you have a multidisciplinary team of people who are trained and have the background and education to handle the behavior and to see what's happening. And, all of our girls are seen by a therapist that we have in-house for individual and group therapy and if it's appropriate, family therapy. And they meet regularly with psychiatrists. We make sure that they have a psychological evaluation. They all get a trauma assessment, and often need educational assessments as well. So they're just high need. And so when we're a group of professionals taking care of that, we can address those needs in a way that it's just kind of difficult for a foster family to do.
Sure. Folks, we're here chatting with Elizabeth Johnson, and she is the executive director of Jesse's House. So, Elizabeth, let's talk a little bit about the services that you offer. A girl comes and you take her into the group home there at Jesse's House. What happens?
Well, we basically follow Maslow's hierarchy of need. So that, basic need of safety. You have to remember that some of these girls have just been removed from a terrible abusive situation. And even though we're not really appropriately called an emergency shelter anymore because we're more long-term, that doesn't mean there's not urgency and crisis in where they're coming from. So they can come to us literally with the clothes on their back, having been physically removed from their home with nothing. So they can be in a pretty heightened state. And so just making them feel safe is the primary thing, and assessing all their needs. So the first thing we do within 72 hours, though, is get them in for a full physical. A lot of them come to us with medical neglect. They haven't seen a doctor or dentist in years. So making sure that that's addressed and that they're physically healthy and take care of those needs. And within the first week to 10 days, we get them in for a dental examination, and then anything they recommend. If they recommend an eye exam or take them to a orthodontist or whatever. So we do all of that. We enroll them in school. We make sure that all those kind of basic things are done. And then that second tier is their psychological needs. So it's the psychiatric evaluation, the psychological evaluation, if that's not been done within the past year, setting them up for a trauma assessment, any kind of educational assessment that they may need so that we can address those needs too. And that's where I see our biggest challenge, stabilizing them and dealing with the ongoing mental health challenges that they have that has been brought on through the years of abuse and neglect that they've endured. And so that's a pretty steep hill to climb. And it's, frequently requires reevaluating and coming up with different approaches to their needs and how we're going to address them. And then that last is that tertiary level, which is their educational needs and life skills, which I know doesn't seem tertiary, but if you've got a girl that's having a mental health crisis, talking about what her history grade is, or I don't know, learning how to cook, it's pretty, secondary at that point. You really got to address those other needs and make sure they're stable and get them to the place where it's like, okay, now here's what you got to do. And we do really stress education because we know that's their best chance out of the kind of cyclical place of oppression that they have come from. And so getting our girls to graduate on time and pass their classes is a big focus. And I'm very proud to say, in the 5 years that I've been there, and I'm sure there's other years where we've had this as well, but I just don't know for sure. But ever since I've been there, I know the girls and know firsthand. We've had 100% graduation rate, on-time graduation rate, which in the state of Georgia is really a big deal.
Sure.
Because only 6 to 8% of kids in foster care in the state of Georgia graduate on time. And only 11% will graduate at all. So to have 100% graduation rate is a pretty big deal.
Wow.
And they go through a lot to get there. I mean, it's really remarkable. And we pretty much get every girl to pass every class when they come to us as well. And a lot of them come failing every class because statistically, each time a girl is moved in foster, or a kid in foster care is moved, they lose about a semester of school. So they often come to us years behind. And actually, Forsyth County schools they're amazing at the resources they provide and the partnering that they do with us to help these girls catch up to their peers and, start to see themselves having that possibility of going to college, which they never dreamed of. That's for other kids, not for kids like me. It's the way they all think about it. So a lot of them are the first in their family to graduate from high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. Now you've got to manage and provide, assistance and in all areas of a young lady's life coming into that, group home, but you've got to manage the whole group, right? I mean, there's a skill to that you have to employ, right?
Yeah, there is. And actually, having come from that background of psychology, it's so interesting to me to see the group dynamics that happen because it's like group dynamics on steroids because they're around each other all the time. So it's it's not like it's a joke, but it's like when one starts to say something, all of a sudden they all are like have that same need and wanting those same things. And so yeah, that's definitely something to look at them as individuals, though, is what's really important, because trauma-informed care is about looking at them as individuals, not as a monolith of kids that come from abuse. They all come from abuse, but that doesn't mean that they're going to respond to it in the same way. And we have to remember that. And so, to ask yourself what happened to you instead of saying what's wrong with you, is what we have to do. And I have to create policy and protocol that, can respond to that and, allows for some uniformity and some, just scheduling that makes it manageable, but at the same time recognizes that there are individuals that will be triggered by things and will have responses to things that we have to pay attention to. So there is a skill in trying to, for me, the biggest thing has been since becoming the program director, it was kind of shifting the paradigm of looking at the girls individually and responding that way, because there was really kind of a top-down approach that made it much more easy for staff, which is not like I'm trying to make it challenging for staff, but for it to be successful, it is the harder route to go. But to not make everything about punishment and consequences, and to not have it where all the power ends up lying with staff. I mean, it's really got to be that the girls feel empowered. Otherwise, you're not building trusting relationships, you're not empowering, you're not helping them heal. And one of the best things we can do is teach them how to trust and build healthy relationships, because they come to us from relationships where that trust has been destroyed, if it was ever there. And learning how to be in a healthy relationship with healthy boundaries is something that's foreign to most of them as well. So getting the staff to understand that that's how we have to approach the girls, instead of like, nope, you're all doing this, you're all, that required a lot of selective training and looking at things, but I don't mean in any way to disparage our staff. They're the most amazing group of people that I've ever worked with, and I've been in this field since 1987. So I've worked with a lot of really incredible people. But this group of women they're remarkably dedicated and skilled and passionate about helping the girls and self-sacrificing, and I couldn't say enough. But it was really just kind of that mindset or that paradigm shift that took some doing.
Sure. So, I was going to ask you some of the changes that you've had since your time at Jesse's house. Sounds like you just described them.
Well, yeah, there's been kind of a general shift in, I think what they've been trying to do in the Department of Human Services is, the kids that don't have the higher needs is, recruiting more people to provide foster homes. So I think that level of care is going away in group homes, and it's become a higher level of care that's needed. And that can mean a lot of different things. But the area that we seem to do really well with are the girls that have the higher mental health needs. So for instance, when I first got there, we wouldn't have accepted girls that have been hospitalized more than 20 times. We wouldn't have accepted girls that came from what they call a psychiatric residential treatment facility. That would have been a higher level of care than what we dealt with. If we didn't accept that now, we wouldn't have many girls there. So we have girls that have schizophrenia and, pretty challenging mental health illness. But I'll give you an example. So one of the girls that we have that came from a PRTF is what they call it, psychiatric residential treatment facility, and being hospitalized more than 20 times, has been with us for over 7 months, has been hospitalized once. And she made it past 7 months being hospitalized at all. So that's a huge improvement in her level of functioning. She was able to go to school at a facility that was separate from where she was residing. And she was successful. Like, the teachers couldn't say enough about how great she had done. And she made friends, and she stayed out of the hospital for more than 7 months. That was just an unthinkable kind of thing. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So
longer length of stay. I'm sorry. You'd asked about the changes. So, for example, in 2017, 60% of the girls have been hospitalized previous to being placed with us. In 2020, 80% had been hospitalized. Sexual abuse reported is exactly correlating with that. 80% of the girls that have been placed with us have been sexually abused, and they report it and it's substantiated. So I actually suspect it's a higher number than that, because there are girls that reveal it when they're with us, and some just don't even realize that they've been trafficked or that they've been abused. It kind of is something that you could say, well, were you sold to a drug dealer or your father's drugs? And I'd say, yeah, that's trafficking. Yeah. They wouldn't even know that that's what had happened to them. Wow. And they were 11, 12 years old when stuff like that happened to them too. So they don't really know what's going on.
Sure.
But the other big difference is that the length of stay has increased significantly. So it used to be that a girl in court would stay like a month or a month and a half. And in 2020, they were over 6 months staying with us. So and DFACS, it's also increased. It's doubled the length of time too. So the average length of stay is over 9 months, but we've had girls that have stayed for more than 2 years. There's just not a viable option for them, and they feel healthy and they like being with us as much as anybody can like being in a group home. It's just they know it's kind of their best option.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's a big change from what it was before.
Yeah. Folks, we're here chatting with Elizabeth Johnson, and she's the executive director of Jesse's House. We were talking about this before we came on the air. I mean, we're in a let's just say we're blessed here in the Forsyth, North Fulton area. It's hard for folks to imagine some of what these girls have been through, right?
Yeah. In fact, that's one of the kind of pervasive thoughts that I have regularly working with these girls is that I'm humbled by and surprised by some of the things. It's the things that you don't really think about that give you perspective. So, for example, for most of us, Lake Lanier is a beautiful place, and it's a place of leisure and fun and relaxation. But for one of our girls, it's the place where she secretly hid the fact that she was homeless for 2 years. She and her family lived in a van and parked in parking lots, or different parking lots around the lake to try to avoid being caught, and fished in the lake. So, and not for leisure, that was for food.
Sure.
And for most of us, those are warm, welcoming waters. And for her, it was the cold, dark waters of Lake Lanier that she bathed in and washed her hair all year round, any temperature. So when she came to us, she came with nothing. And for all the girls, we put together a hygiene bag, and we also put together like a little duffel bag of clothes that they have for that night, so that we know they've got something, and we just do it like by size. So I handed her a hygiene bag, and she looked up at me and said, "Is this for me?" And I said, "Yeah, of course. It's just some essentials like shampoo, toothpaste, soap." And she's like, "Well, when you've been washing your hair in Lake Lanier, this is a pretty big deal."
Wow.
So, yeah, talk about getting put in your place.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even think about it. Then 2 years ago, we were sponsored by Hallway Plumbing, which got a shout out for them. They're an amazing company and great community partner and sponsor of ours. And so 2 years ago, we had to have some plumbing done, and they not only donated the plumbing, then we had to remove the girls from the house because the water was going to get shut out, and we didn't have any place to put them. And so we were able to schedule it during spring break. And probably unsurprisingly, a lot of these girls had never been on spring break trip before. And Hallway Plumbing donated money for us to be able to take them to Tybee Island, which was so great.
Wow.
So I don't know if it would be surprising or not, but for some of the girls, they'd never been to the beach before. So that was their first time at the beach. But the thing that really struck me on that trip was that one of the nights we went into Savannah and we went to a restaurant, nothing fancy, but we had to make reservations because there was a group of us. And most of those girls had not ever been to a restaurant where you made reservations. And when they were sitting there and holding the menu, they all, not all, but a lot of them said they'd never held a menu before. They'd never sat at a restaurant with a waitress coming to wait on them.
Wow.
Yeah. So for them, ordering was always what they saw on the wall behind, a stainless steel counter and cashiers taking their fast food order, or looking through a window of a car and, looking at the menu like that. Those aren't things that most of us think about, but that's what these girls live through. And so I always have to think about that and not try to assume anything like these girls have had any experience like any of their peers. But beyond that, the stuff that, the things that you don't think about is the stuff that I call unreal, but all too real for the girls at Jesse's house. So the unspeakable kind of violence and abuse that they've suffered. It's unfathomable to a lot of people to think about human depravity the way that I see it daily. But to have a girl come to you who has been beaten longer than her memory serves her. She doesn't remember a time when she wasn't beaten or stabbed by her mother when she was 12. Never brought to the hospital. She just miraculously survived. Being 3 years old and sexually abused by your father, passed around to his friends.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Right. It's tough.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Folks, we're here chatting with Elizabeth Johnson. She is the executive director of Jesse's House. Wow, Elizabeth. So you said you have these girls on average 6 months.
In court, and for defects, it's more than 9.
Okay.
Closer to 10. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I got you. So in residence at Jesse's house, about 10 months. Okay.
Right.
Gotcha. So, I mean, what are you trying to accomplish in that time? I mean, because that's a short period of time to try to help these young women through the changes they need to affect in their psyche and their spirit after the years of abuse that they have been through. I mean, what do you hope to accomplish in that time?
Well,
what's your goal?
Yeah, and that varies from girl to girl.
Sure.
Really, as you might imagine, the 2 girls that I just described, I mean, like I said, 80% of them have been sexually abused, so it's not just those 2 girls, but just 2 examples. So they've lived their life in survival mode. It's been just thinking of and living in terror of somebody beating them or molesting them or living almost feral, like, not knowing where your next meal is coming from, not having food or electricity or running water. So getting them to start to feel comfortable and safe and trust is the first, after we take care of their psychological needs. But for the girl that I was just talking about that's been hospitalized more than 20 times, let's keep her out of the hospital. Let's try to get her so she can function in a more, more like her peers. For the girl that comes to us failing every single class, let's get her to pass those classes. And then we're going to find a way to try to help her catch up so she can graduate on time, or just graduate, and that she doesn't feel just so overwhelmed and lost. So making sure that their educational needs are met, making sure their physical, making their psychological needs, all those kind of goals. And then the life skills, we want them to leave knowing how to cook and balance a budget and, clean a house. I mean, some of them just don't even know those basic things, hygiene, things like that. We have a nurse that will come in and educate them on certain things too that are, personal hygiene or just any kind of health-related subject.
Sure.
And then we've got wonderful people that sponsor. Like we just had the girls go to something called Be More Learning, which was a program that helped them kind of discover a little bit about what their goals are and build that kind of awareness, and then start to come out, to a place where they start to think differently about what they can accomplish in their life. Most come without dreaming that they can be like those other kids, that they can go to college, that they might be able to live a life where they're, have a professional career where they can support their kids, where they're not going to be, on food stamps and working 3 jobs and, trying just to survive, where they can get out of survival mode for once in their life. I don't know. That was probably kind of a scattered response.
No, that's great. That's great. Well, I would love it. I mean, obviously you can share names and, coordinates here, but I would love it if you could share, a story that is indicative of the kind of work that you do in terms of someone who's now maybe years later has come back and talked about the experience that she's had at Jesse's house and what that meant to her in her life and her recovery. Right.
So we have had, and I will say from time to time, somebody will call a mother or somebody that's been involved and say, I just want to tell you my daughter's, 23 years old, and you saved her life. I think she would have gone down a path of drugs and trafficking and probably wouldn't have survived without you guys. So we do hear that a lot. So we've had, like last year, we had our 3 graduates that we really celebrated because they, 2 of them had been homeless their first 2 years of high school. And, so for them to graduate on time was really remarkable. And so one of them I would talk about that finished her first year at KSU successfully and, called me and said that she was looking for a summer job. And I called one of our community partners, actually Hallway Plumbing. I'll shout out to them again. And so she's working there for the summer. And so that's really a very successful transition out of care in 18 and finishing your freshman year without incident and moving on to a summer job. I mean, that's kind of normal life for most of the kids that are her peers. But for foster kids, it's kind of an unheard of kind of thing. So, we had another girl who lived with us through her 19th birthday and went to cosmetology school for a year. And she made up for an entire year of high school through, I'm forgetting the name of the program right now, but it's a kind of work at your own pace and you can, make up for lost time that way. She worked so hard, made it for an entire year, graduated on time, and then went on to cosmetology school. And so that's another success story that, this girl came from, she was trafficked. There was so much that she had to overcome.
Wow.
Just to get to the place where she even felt like she deserved a different kind of future and then worked toward that future. The girl that lived in the van, She was with us for over 2 years. She ended up graduating in 3 National Honor Societies. Right there.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have a really good program, and we do make a really big difference. And so when I speak to people, I usually will say something like, you probably didn't think that you're waking up this morning and, going out to change the world, but just supporting us, you are changing the world for these girls. I mean, it really is that direct of an impact on them and the difference in life that they can have. So, yeah.
Wow. Elizabeth, this is great. Now, one thing we have to get to before we let you go is how folks in the community can be helpful to you. Obviously, we've got a lot of business listeners, and they bring resources that are different, not better, but different than individuals.
Right.
And we have to say that given the nature of your work, you don't just throw the doors open to volunteers that a lot of other nonprofits do because of the special needs and concerns that the girls you serve have. So let's say that and get that out there, but talk about how folks can help you.
Yeah, right. Well, we are an undisclosed location to protect the girls. So like you said, it is kind of a tricky thing to have a lot of direct interaction with the girls. So, and we, I feel very protective of the girls that get placed in our care.
Sure.
And so, it's not like I want to scare people off, but there might, just to have reasonable expectations about what you might be able to do. But we welcome people reaching out and offering to volunteer and finding ways to help us. So I'll call it the 3 Fs, which I'm shamelessly stealing from our male counterpart in Forsyth County, Bald Ridge Lodge. So the first being, first F standing for funding. So we operate on a per diem from the state and from the Forsyth County Juvenile Court that covers somewhere between 70, maybe to 75% of our operating costs. So we are making up for that gap through grants and donations, private and corporate, from sponsors through the community. On a daily basis, I think about it that way. Like, okay, I've got to figure out how we're going to cover up this, cover this 20 to 30% of operating cost every day. And to give you an idea, then what kind of things I'm talking about too, to be specific, because I think sometimes to have more of a concrete idea can help people understand. So, the girls that come to us through DFACS, they are given a $415 allowance per year for their clothing. So I want you to think about how much $415 can cover for a year of clothing for a girl that's coming with nothing. That's everything. That's a coat. That's, sneakers, boots, sandals. It's undergarments. It's everything. And even, we shop at Walmart and places where it's, much less expensive, just to make sure we cover all those basics. So to have anything beyond that, and especially in, an area like this, it's affluent, and to help them feel normal, we need more than $415 to cover that for a year. So
you're talking about $30 a month, basically, roughly, in rough numbers.
Right.
Yeah, if my math's right, about $30 a month, folks. That's what we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have a 12-year-old girl, she could grow 3 inches that year.
Yeah.
That's annual, so it'll come up on a date. It's not like they're going to have flexibility with that. So anything extra that we do has to come from community support. We can't even take that out of our operating budget. It's staying open and operating. That has to be our primary concern. So the funding is a big piece of it. I couldn't stress that enough, to do the kind of direct care that we do and have the people that are capable of taking care of the girls. So, but the second F, I would say, is food. So, we're a 24/7 shelter. They're there And then this year they were doing virtual school because of the pandemic. So that's 3 meals a day that we're providing for these girls, and they're teenage girls. And, it's not just teenage boys that like to eat. Girls do too.
Sure.
So, if you wanted to provide a meal, or a restaurant that, like Mellow Mushroom provides us with a meal once a month, and they set it up on, I don't know, it's the 4th Monday of every month or something like that. That's awesome. Because even though we like to teach the girls to cook, for those staff that are doing the direct care, and it's 5:00 and they've had a rough day because somebody's not in a great place or something like that, and you've got 12 girls that are hungry and need to be supervised, not having to cook a meal is a huge relief. So having meals donated and sponsored by local restaurants is a huge help. And then just having people that want to donate food as well. And then the last would be fun. Like I talked about before, for those girls that went on spring break and, held a menu for the first time. Those are really enriching experiences that do heal and help them feel supported and empowered and like they matter to people in the community. And so, we love to be able to take them on sponsored things like that. And even if it's just a day outing somewhere, like going to the movies or, going to the lake and having a picnic or something like that. Anything that's extra has to be sponsored because, again, that's not coming out of our operating budget. We need those things sponsored. So, so those are the 3 ways that it makes the biggest impact. But also, we love our volunteers, so,
Yeah, for sure. But be in touch, and that really kind of leads us to our most important question, which is for those that are motivated to be in touch and would like to help in some way and connect with you, tell them how they can do that.
Okay. So, you can check out our website, jessieshouse.org, and there's a lot of information on the website that can, put you in touch with us, and you can find out some details about, more of what we do on the website as well. And how to donate, things like that. But then, you can also call me directly at, 678-947-6217, which that number's on our website as well, of course, or email me at elizabeth@jessieshouse.org.
And you've got a wish list on the website too. So,
Yes.
And that you periodically change,
Yep.
In terms of most needed items.
Yes.
So folks, check that out.
Yes.
Don't just go in your closet and pick out the things that you think Jessie's house needs. Go to the wish list and check it out there, right? So that would be the most helpful thing to do.
Right.
So,
yeah, we do take donations of gently used clothing and everything, but as you might imagine, the girls are pretty thrilled to have new things.
Right.
And the ability to buy things themselves. So like gift cards are great because then that's something they can hold in their hand, go to a store, pick out something. Not at Walmart, but at, another store that their peers might be able to shop too. So
absolutely. Yeah, that's a great gift to give someone for sure. Wow. Elizabeth Johnson, thanks so much for the work you do and your team.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're honored to have you here. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Folks, just a quick reminder that if you've got administrative tasks in your business that are weighing you down, maybe you're doing your books at 11 o'clock at night or something like that. There's probably a better use of your time than that. And my suggestion to solve that problem is giving Essie Escobedo over at Office Angels a call. Go to officeangels.us and you can find the complete list of services that they offer. But my suggestion is just give Essie a call, 770-442-9246. And tell her I sent you. And what she'll do is figure out what your needs are and pair you up with an angel or two who will fly in, get the job done, and fly out. And they do it on an ongoing or as-needed basis. And they do it virtually. They've been doing it that way for 21 years. So a pandemic environment does not scare them. So give Essie a call. I think you'll be glad that you did. And folks, just a quick reminder that you can find this show on all the major podcast apps. North Fulton Business Radio is the search term, and I would love it. Personal request, please. If you would go find the show on your favorite app, subscribe, and give us a 5-star review. Now, it's not about me. It's not about Business RadioX. It's about our guests. We want people to find the show so that they can connect with a lot of our great business and community leaders like Elizabeth. And certainly you've heard the story of Jesse's House today and the support from our community that they need to do the great work that they do. So that small little step will help. So thank you for that in advance. So for my guest, Elizabeth Johnson of Jesse's House, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on North Fulton Business Radio.